Was chairman of the Rules Committee, the Honorable Pete Sessions.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and I want to thank the members who have not only agreed to be here today, but for the intense interest in this issue. Chairman Collins, thank you very much for not only chairing this member feedback session, but also for your discussions that we've had with the entire Rules Committee on the process that we're currently going through. As we know, a little bit more than a year ago, our conference met to talk about not only earmarking, but how members of Congress might more effectively be involved in processes that today they cannot be a part of because of a moratorium that was set back in 2010. Our conference has had vigorous discussions about the activities, not only about what happened before, but presently what is occurring. And we believe today we're holding a hearing, and tomorrow we will hear from outside groups who would wish to provide not only this committee, but really the entire Congress with information about their ideas about moving forward. I do not anticipate in any way that we will move backwards, meaning that I would not believe that this committee would offer a suggestion or a recommendation to the Republican conference or to the general body about moving backwards to where we earmarked specific projects that might be available from the past. In fact, what has happened is we became aware of a whole process that did not work. As we know, there were members of the United States Senate, and I'm sure members of the House, on a bipartisan basis, who utilized the strength that they had to even add earmarks that were airdropped, meaning that they did not even go through a process, but rather simply put stickies onto the final bill that might be then passed by both bodies and then signed into law. What I also understand, however, is the moratorium has led to some $5 to $15 billion being available by the executive branch. The executive branch then had the power that they chose, perhaps with feedback, perhaps with no feedback, about the selection of activities that this $5 to $15 billion would be spent on. Some of those activities have come into conflict, I believe, with abuses and could be called abuses, but nonetheless, it was a process because we abdicated our responsibility, Article I responsibilities, to the Article II responsibilities, and that is the executive branch. I believe that the feedback that can be provided, not only by this body and its members, but also outside groups, including those that study this from a particular cause of government responsibility, as well as the responsibility from outside groups who have a distinct opinion that we can move forward to make this a process that is known well and understood. Some of those words that might be associated with that might be transparency. Some of those words might be competitive, and some of those words might be meritorious, meaning that I believe that the money that is spent on behalf of the American people should fit all three of those categories, not selected specifically by any one person, but rather vetted through the process in the best interest of the United States and the taxpayer who would have an opinion about that. Mr. Chairman, it is my thanks to you for not only holding this meeting, it is my thanks to Mrs. Slaughter, who has provided me guidance and I believe thoughts about not only how her party might look at it, but also about what end result we might have. I also want to thank the gentleman from Florida, the gentleman, Mr. Hastings, for his, what I consider to be feedback and ideas that I think that will be a part of a recommendation that comes. Mr. Hastings, Judge Hastings, has taken time, I believe, to dissect both sides of the issue, not only the executive branch, but also the member responsibility, placed in order, I think, what follows along the lines of we need to make sure that what happens when an appropriation bill is signed, that we know what the money will be spent for, that we can take responsibility for that, and that the administration likewise will be expected to play through that process. as opposed to a process where $5 to $15 billion is given, the administration makes its own decisions, and we sit back and guess or gamble at what those outcomes will be. So I thank all of the witnesses that we will have today. I will tell you that each of you are important to this process. We will take into account your thoughts and your ideas. We will move forward. But most of all, I trust the 9 members on this side and the 4 that are on the minority side to come together to see this issue as important to not only the credibility of Congress, but also the insight that the American people had, because it is their money. Mr. Chairman, I yield back my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the full committee chairman. Again, I want to just